With the new petrol price of 1,030 naira per litre in the nation's capital Abuja and would be higher in other states, meaning subsidy is fully gone and the deregulation of Nigeria's downstream sector is now at its peak, following NNPC's decision to quit its sole off-taker role with Dangote Refinery. Oil and gas experts say from now on, petrol price will not be static and will not be dictated by government agencies as arbitrage or subsidy payment is no longer in place. Global crude prices and prevailing foreign exchange rates will now contribute to pricing of the product. In the midst of this, some filling stations are taking advantage of the situation to exploit their customers, with several complaints from some filling stations adjusting their pumps to dispense products below the quantity paid for by motorists. Motorists lament that regulatory authorities like the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority seem helpless as they pay more for a litre but get lesser quantity of petrol. When Arise News reached out to the regulator, NMDPRA, on this, the spokesperson, George Eneta, explains in a text message that NMDPRA conducts regular surveillance inspections and is working to tackle errant filling stations shortchanging motorists. The NMDPRA spokesman says erring outlets are subjected to sanctions that may involve sealing off offending pumps and imposing fines or shutting down the station completely, depending on the gravity of the offense. The agency is encouraging members of the public to report suspected filling stations that are under dispensing through the agency's customer care and social media handles. On how the agency is regulating the downstream after NNPC's exit of its middleman role, the authority said the agency's regulatory role has never been influenced or dictated by third-party organizations or agencies. It says, "We have always been available to exercise our mandate as dictated by the PIA 2021 framework." End quote. But despite all of this, Nigerians are still demanding more action from the regulator to protect them from arbitrary petrol pricing by independent oil marketers and under-dispensing of the product by errant filling stations. Georgina Ndukwezaika, Arise News.
Let's bring in lawyer and Arise News analyst Frank Tietie. Good to see you, Frank, and thanks for your time. Well, these are moments where many Nigerians seem to be left in the dark. First, NNPC, with a spokesperson, has been so silent, speaking to no one, and people trying to hazard a guess. And DPR, now NMDPRA, hasn't been seen. So everyone, whatever you're going to be dispensed with at the end of the day is all to yourself. So listening to Georgina's report, help us make sense of NNPC, NMDPRA, and the Nigerian buyer of petroleum product in the face of a hike, and how the regulatory body can truly be a regulator in this.
Okay, let me start. In fairness to Femi Shoneye, the spokesperson, the corporate chief of NNPCL, I think he's been quite forthright in the issuance of statements. We have not been in dark with regards to inquiries made to him, and he has oftentimes issued statements at every material time with regards to trending issues affecting the NNPCL. So that's in fairness to him. On the other hand,
it is debatable.
On the other hand,
debatable.
On the other hand, the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority appears to be comatose. Nigerians don't even know whether it exists. The idea, because it is minding its own business. And the reason why NNPCL has been in the center of it all is because it's biting more than it can chew. It's taking on the role of so many other agencies that it ought not to, whereas it ought to be purely a private company that, even though that has government interest, that is state-owned to a large extent by reason of the powers of appointment on the part of the president, it's a company that is regulated by the Company and Allied Matters Act, and is supposed to operate as a private company for profit. Unfortunately, the company is struggling to cater to Nigeria's energy security problem to the extent that it doesn't bother about profit anymore. It's been in the eye of the storm. It's dealing with issues even with express provision of Section 31, paragraph G of the Petroleum Industry Act, that insists, that expressly puts the supply of crude crude to domestic for domestic refining in the hands of the NMDPRA. It's not in the part, or it's not on the hands. I mean, on the part of NNPCL to supply crude to domestic refinery. So the idea is that Nigerians, the only time in recent times we heard about the NNDPRA was when it made a very, very, the bad statement, very scathing statement against the Dangote refineries, castigating the quality of its diesel. Apart from that, Nigerians don't really see it as as an authority or an agency of government that exists for it for them.
I think it was the NUPRC that actually made that claim about Dangote's not necessarily.
The NMDPRA deals with upstream issues, but when it comes to midstream and downstream sectors, particularly, and then the NMDPRA dealing with this issue of metering. Now, to be fair to the NMDPRA, Section 205 of the PIA does allow the pricing, the pricing of petroleum products to be determined by market forces. However, that same provision provides that where there is a near dominant monopoly of a supplier of a product, petroleum product, as we have in this case by Dangote refineries, or as we have had when NNPCL was biting more than it could chew, the NNDPRA, according to the provisions of Section 31 and Section 32, has the responsibility to issue a pricing framework, which it hasn't done. But the real thing that bothers Nigerians, and I think we should land on that, that bothers Nigerians is a situation where when you have these constant increases reflecting the market forces, and you find a group of unscrupulous persons manning the petrol stations who dispense far less than what Nigerians pay for,
tampering with their meters and all of that, and that's where the NMDPRA
is absolutely failing.
Is it failing in its responsibility? I'd like you to address that. And on the other hand, again, TUC today, in one of his recommendations, said, look, NMDPRA, you need to give marketers licenses to, lift petrol from Dangote refinery.
No, you cannot operate.
At least to break that monopoly that you talk about.
No, what's the monopoly? The NNPCL has washed its hands off its idea of being the soul of the being a very noble reason, being that because it has a statutory responsibility of ensuring energy security, it didn't want to allow those competitors and other persons who are driven solely by profit to be buying this and then determine, and especially when you don't have a pricing framework that is expressly stated by the NMDPRA. So the NNPCL was taking too much. So now, washing his hands off it, you cannot take part in the downstream or in the midstream, operations in Nigeria without any form of licensing from the NNDPRA. Unfortunately, as we speak, the issues, even the basic things that the NNDPRA is supposed to deliver, it is failing to deliver them. We're talking about stock, for example. Anytime you hear about fuel queues and fuel scarcities all across the country, the first thing that comes to mind is NNPCL. Whereas it is a statutory responsibility and the credit to the NMDPRA that it even has a regulation to that effect that it must have 60 days of storage in stock of PMS at every material time. So, if the NMDPRA was alive and well to its responsibility, we would never hear of anything like petrol shortage or fuel queues. Unfortunately, it seems as if, like its critics are saying, look, is it time you scrap the NMDPRA? Because it seems as if the NNPCL is now bending over, spending its money, going out of its own place to ensure energy security and also to ensure that final off-taking of...
Isn't there a possibility that the NMDPRA is being limited too in its capacity, maybe being shortchanged, or its job being stifled by other forces? Maybe, for example, maybe an NPCL is also doing the job of NMDPRA.
How? NMPCL is purely a private company that is running for profit. NMPCL is running for profit.
Yeah, but
right?
you just said NMPCL is going beyond its...
Because it has a statutory responsibility to ensure energy security. That's the reason why it is even investing in alternative energy sources beyond PMS. However, I need to answer your question because it's very important. Now, we're talking about a regulator here. And you need to, that operates according to international standards, that constantly issues regulations. The problem we have is the gap between the fine regulations it makes and the impact it has in the market, particularly in the downstream market, where Nigerians are currently suffering in the hands of unscrupulous petrol dispensers. Let me give you an example. a petrol attendant had confided in me that he has a way of actually, for a gas tank that could take just 80 liters, that he has a way of, pumping so much into it, so much air into it, in place of, actual PMS, and then to get as much as 100,000 naira instead of 80,000 naira. Now, such kind of, malpractices that have become increased. Now, if that happens in the heart of Nigeria, in Abuja here, imagine what happens in the
Frank,
rural area.
Just let me get in this, because I have the sense that this is almost speaking on behalf of NNPC. Listening to you, it will seem as if you're doing the job of Shunaya, who has been silent, and you say he's been speaking to the extent that Nigerians till this moment, before they stop being the middleman, playing the middleman role, no one knows at what cost they were getting from Dangote. I'm coming, let me land on this. So now we bring all of this, and it looks like at a point sometimes the L disappears from NNPC, and some other time it appears.
Yeah.
And no one has been able to say anything about that. So help us here understand a situation whereby the Minister of Petroleum, who is my president, your president, hasn't spoken on this, and NNPCL has been silent concerning the dealings of what they had with Dangote until they hands off what they were doing with Dangote. So isn't it the responsibility of the people to know what actually transpired before this hike in petroleum price?
Now, you see, because of my role as a civil society leader, particularly the convener of the Energy Security Coalition, I am very much in touch with some of these information. And oftentimes that I have made freedom of information requests, particularly from Femi Shonaye's office, I have received it. So I give absolute commendation to him. So I'm able to speak because I have abundance of information that he has supplied to me. There's no doubt about that, that he has supplied to my coalition. Now, with regards to pricing, there has been the call has actually been directed to Dangote Refinery that, look, please state the prices you sell, even to NMPCL or to other marketers. The NMPC, through statements issued by Femi Shonaye, have been expressed that the price they bought, as they bought lately, is 977, and then they sell in certain places like Lagos at 988, and then to the extent that you can get at 1,030 in Abuja. That's expressed.
That's for now.
But I don't know the period. I don't know the period you are referring to.
I just told you.
To the best of my knowledge, there has been a measure of transparency with regards to pricing on the part of NNPCL, whereas, take note of this, whereas the pricing framework ought to be published at every material time by the NMDPRA and not the NNPCL. You get it? But on the other hand, why don't you make
very quickly before we go, because we're wrapping up now.
This is speaking for the
NMDPRA job or mandate. Is it just the NMDPRA that's in charge of ensuring that these malpractices don't happen?
Absolutely.
Where's the FCCPC? Where's even the EFCC?
This is my experience as a civil society leader is this. Unless you are able to get some measure of pieces of evidence, then you can approach the FCCPC. On the other hand, the issue of dispensing fuel into petrol gas tank is a very difficult one. Now, many fuel stations that refuse to sell into jerry cans are first of all primary suspects, because it's easy to measure that one. But on the other hand, you are talking about somebody who is putting the nozzle into a fuel gas tank and then pumping whatever, and then the meter reads, you pay whatever it said. Look, I have had to pay close to 100,000 naira for 80 liters tank. Yeah. It's as a result, and the man confided in me that when they want to do it, they do it. So at that point, we expect that the NNDPRA goes above the norm to give that kind of protection to the Nigerian consumer.
Okay, well, let's hope the NMDPRA will live up to.
And also let your friend know that quickly, is he forbidden to speak? Your friend.
He has to speak under authority. Okay. He has to speak under authority.
So now
corporate matters, they don't have the kind of freedom that I have.
Right. We'll have to leave it there. Frank Tietie, thank you very much for joining us, lawyer and Arise analyst.